Hello everyone, my name is Sreenath. I'm working as assistant professor in the Department of CSE AI, Madanapalli Institute of Technology and Sciences. Today we are discussing about cryptography and network security. In this, I will go this the basic concept, the introduction of cryptography and network security, along with the security attacks and the security mechanisms and security services where we have discussed now. So anyhow, the contents I will show now. The first one is introduction to cryptography. Coming to the second one, OSI security architecture and security attacks. In these security attacks, we have two different types of attacks. So one is a passive attack, and second one is the active attack. So coming to first of all, let me know about what is the cryptography. Try to understand the what do you mean by cryptography. Cryptography is a technique of securing information of communication through use of codes. So, what do you mean by the secure communication? In this era, um, we are going to be use a unsecure communication channel, nothing but internet. So, the sender and receiver they are going to be exchanging the information where one from one to another. So, undoubtedly, in this unsecuring channel, we are going to be share our information. Sometimes the data may be uh, lost, or maybe the data may be grasped by other third persons. It means that the hackers are going to be uh, attack our data. So, so let's try to understand. mm, First of all, what is the meaning of cryptography? So the crypt means here hidden, and graphy means writing. So where we have to send a message or whatever information we are going to be sharing to the receiver. Um, so the data is going to be hidden format. So, uh, so suppose in this session we are going to be discuss about OSI architecture, nothing but open system interconnection. So it is in a systematic process or a framework defining the security attacks and security mechanisms and security services. Okay, let's try to understand what is meant by security attacks. So again, security attacks. The security attacks are going to be classified into two types. One is active attacks, one is passive attacks. So whereas the active attacks involves the um, attacker who is going to be modify the message by using of different techniques. They're going to be modify the data. Whereas the passive attacks, so the attacker just involve um, they're not modification of messages. They're not doing the modification. Simply, they are going to be reading the contents of the message. So that means it is an unauthorized effect. So that's why it is a security attack. Coming to the security mechanisms, it is a process of designed to detect or prevent from the security attacks. We have several examples for this. For upcoming lectures, I will tell about the encryption algorithms and what are the digital signatures and authentication protocols. Like we have different kinds of encryption algorithms like data encryption standard algorithm or advanced encryption standard algorithm. So like DES, AES. So like this type of algorithms we have to use to prevent the security attacks. And coming to the security services, um, security services are nothing but it is an essential to protecting the digital data and ensure the secure communication. So it mean there are different kinds of services are having in the cryptography. For example, we have like authentication, access control, data confidentiality, and data integrity and non-reputation. So these are the several services we are going to be provided by the cryptography. So like suppose for example authentication. What do you mean by authentication? So where the user um, gives their credentials, then only we can be able to access the data, right? um, and then access control, we have to provide certain access controls, um, like some privileges we have to provide such for the user. So these are services or mechanisms. uh, while using these cryptography, we have to provide a secure communication channel between the sender and the receiver. And coming to the next one, uh, security attacks. Suppose here I am going to be clearly explain about the security attacks in this session. Um, Already I will discuss the security attacks are going to be classified into two types. So those are passive attacks and active attacks. So passive attacks means here the attacker, he is to make the use of information from the system, but not affect any system resources. It is only is a learning how what are the techniques we have to use and what type of message we are going to be transferring. So those kind of things can be done by the attackers. So there's a passive attacks. Whereas active attacks, it is an attempt to alter the system resources and affect their operations. So what do you mean by the passive attacks involves like device like denial of service. So these type of techniques that are going to be used, and then they're going to be interrupt the our services. But whereas a passive attacks cannot involve the modification of message, but what they're going to be supposed to means just they are going to be make is use of information, our information, what type of information we are going to be sharing, and what kind of technique we are going to be sharing. So there's a way they have to understood. So while transferring the message from the sender to receiver. Okay. Again, coming to what are the different types of attacks we have under the passive and active attacks, we'll going to discuss now. So so in the passive attacks we have two types of attacks. One is the release the message content, and second one is the traffic analysis. See, first one is the release the message content. So the release the message content, it is nothing but it is easy to understand. One suppose we are having any telephone conversation, or we are sending a electronic mail or emails we are sending. Um, it contains some confidential data. So the opponent or attacker, so he is knowing the information. So what the message we are going to be transferring, the message can be transferred through sender to receiver. Here the Bob and Elias, the Bob and Elias are Bob is a sender and Elias is a receiver, where the Darth is nothing but attacker. He is trying to read the data what the sender is going to be sending to the receiver, nothing but Bob to Elias. So he's not able to harm the any resources, just he is going to be read the message. So there is a one kind of passive attack. Coming to uh, one more, traffic analysis. So here the data what we are going to be sharing, uh, like here the way of masking the contents of the message. So masking means um, is nothing but hiding, right? So masking the contents of the messages or other information of the traffic, so as such that the opponent, nothing but uh, attacker, um, is to capture the data and could not extract the information from the message. Suppose the receiver, um, the data whatever we are sharing, he is not able to receive properly from the sender. So that's why he is applying some masking technique, so that the receiver cannot able to read. So likewise, the attacker is going to be doing such kind of operations. Okay, coming to active attacks. So active attacks are involves the modification of the message. So in the stream, whatever the data we are going to be sharing, Whereas a passive attacks, what we discussed now earlier. So the passive attacks um, involves only the what are the data we are sharing, we are sharing. So those data is going to be just they will observe. But whereas the active attack involves the modification of these messages, whatever the data we are sharing. And apart from that, they are going to be um, change the data, whatever the data we are going to be sharing. The data is going to be manipulated by the attacker, right? um, the passive attacks, active attacks are going to be categorized into four types here. The first one is masquerade, and second one is the replay, and third one is the modification of message, and finally denial of service. First one is let me go and discuss about first one, masquerade. What is masquerade? Masquerade takes place when one entity pretends to the different entity. Uh, it means that the intended person, uh, the data whatever the receivers are going to be received from the sender, it is not exactly the from the sender. So it is going to be played by masquerade. The masquerade is the attack usually includes the one of the other forms of active attack. So the intended person cannot be received from the original sender. So it's meant by masquerade. Coming to the next one is replay. So the replay attacks involves the passive capture of the data, and then it is a subsequent transmission is going to be produced from the unauthorized effect. So there is a replay attack. And coming to the third one is the modification of message. Um, the modification of message, the name itself you can understand. The attacker is going to be modify the message. Um, Simply, it means some portion of the message or legitimate message can be altered by the attacker. The message is going to be delayed, or maybe sometimes it is going to be recorded, or sometimes the data is going to be totally corrupted by the attackers. So there's by modification of the message. It produces the unauthorized effect. See here, um, the Bob and Elias, they are going to be trying to exchange the information, but where the data is going to be already captured by the dot, nothing but attacker, and the reply is going to be coming from the attacker, right? So it is going to be involves the attacker or nothing but dot. He is going to be giving the reply, nothing but the entire message is going to be modified. And the next one is last one, denial of service. In this denial of service, um, it prevents the normal use or management of communication facilities. This attack involves a specific target where um, the attacker maybe disturb the entire network, or maybe disabling the network, or maybe sometimes it is going to be the overloading of message they are going to be sent from the attacker, so that our network may be getting some issues, so that we can't able to exchange the data. This is all about the active attacks and passive attacks in the OSI architecture. So apart from this, the cryptography and network security mainly there are two different types of mechanisms that are going to be used. Those are nothing but one is two different types of cryptographies. So one is symmetric cryptography, and coming to the asymmetric cryptography. What is meant by symmetric and what is meant by asymmetric? These concepts we will discuss in the next concept further. Um, Anyhow, um, these are references where I am going to be using. And